The JFK Conspiracy. Who killed JFK? John F. Kennedy. This is the question that Americans have been asking for years. According to Wikipedia, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was assassinated on Friday, November 22nd, 1963 at 12:30 p.m. in Dallas, Texas, while riding in a presidential motorcade through Dealey Plaza. Kennedy was riding with his wife Jacqueline, Texas Governor John Connally, and Connally's wife Neely when he was fatally shot by former U.S. Marine Lee Harvey Oswald, firing in ambush from a nearby building. The motorcade was rushed to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where Kennedy was pronounced dead about 30 minutes after the shooting. Connally recovered. Oswald was arrested by the Dallas Police Department 70 minutes after the initial shooting. Oswald was charged under Texas state law with the murder of Kennedy, as well as that of Dallas policeman J.D. Tippit, who had been fatally shot a short time after the assassination. At 11:21 a.m., November 24th, 1963, as live television cameras were covering his transfer from the city jail to the county jail, Oswald was fatally shot in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters by Dallas nightclub operator Jack Ruby. Oswald was taken to Parkland Memorial Hospital, where he soon died. Ruby was convicted of Oswald's murder, though it was later overturned on appeal, and Ruby died in prison in 1967 while awaiting a new trial. After a 10-month investigation, the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald assassinated Kennedy and that Oswald acted entirely alone, and that Ruby had acted alone in killing Oswald. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson automatically became president upon Kennedy's death. This is the story that the American government has been feeding the American people for over 50 years. They have been teaching this lie in schools for over half a century, and the truth needs to finally be told. Today I will be discussing and giving you, the American people, some facts about events that happened before the assassination that might have been the reason for the assassination of JFK. Then I will be giving you information on the many so-called conspiracy theories about who could be responsible for the assassination. Finally, I will be giving you my own theory on who killed JFK and why I know that it was more than one man that killed JFK. First, let me begin with the information about the events that happened before the horrible assassination of JFK. First event comes to mind is the Bay of Pigs. According to the website American Historama.org, the Bay of Pigs invasion occurred on April 17, 1961, when 1,400 CIA-backed Cuban exiles launched a botched invasion at a beach on the south coast of Cuba called the Bay of Pigs. The Bay of Pigs invasion was a disaster. By April 20th, 1961, 1,200 invaders were forced to surrender. President Kennedy, embarrassed and humiliated, had to negotiate a deal with Fidel Castro to release the prisoners. According to an article, How the Bay of Pigs Invasion Changed JFK, JFK felt that he could no longer trust the CIA, along with much of the foreign policy establishment he inherited, including the National Security Council. As a result of the disaster, Kennedy revamped the administration's decision-making process. He emphasized consulting with allies and being concerned with the impact of international law on major foreign policy decisions. And most importantly, the focus of decision-making moved from the CIA to advisors the new president trusted, including his brother Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General, and old friend Theodore Sorensen. According to the website jfklibrary.org, in 1961, the deteriorating political situation in Laos posed a serious concern in U.S. foreign policy when President JFK took office. Shortly before JFK's inauguration, President Eisenhower warned his successor that the effort was on the verge of failure and the U.S. military might need to intervene. Kennedy moved cautiously. He rejected a variety of proposals to send American forces and concluded that a negotiated settlement with the Soviet Union and other interested parties was the best he could achieve. These are just a couple of events that happened leading up to the assassination of JFK. There are many theories of who is responsible for the assassination of JFK. According to the website bugspace.com, Lyndon B. Johnson, conspiracy. A poll by Gallup in 2003 indicated that nearly 20% of Americans suspected Vice President LBJ of being involved in the assassination of Kennedy for political gain and power. The Warren Commission also accused Johnson of plotting the assassination because he disliked the Kennedys and feared that he would be dropped from the Democratic ticket for the 1964 election. LBJ and JFK apparently had words the day before the assassination. Lyndon also played a big part in JFK going to Dallas in the first place. The mob assassinated JFK. The Kennedys were no stranger to crimes. In fact, many believe that the mafia helped JFK steal the election in 1960 by securing the votes in the key state of Illinois. Jack Ruby, who killed Oswald, was a Dallas nightclub owner who some theorized had mafia connection. Some even believe that the mob was working in collusion with the CIA to carry out the Kennedy hit. In 2003, in a 2003 interview with James Files told the story of the Kennedy assassination. In the spring of 1963, Files was approached by Nicoletti, who told him they were going on a drive. On the drive, Nicoletti told Files of a plan to assassinate President Kennedy. According to Files, the plan had come from the CIA and Geinica, and Nicolai was chosen to carry out the plan. In the first months leading up to the assassination, many different locations were considered, and it was decided that Dallas was the best place. Files was at first not supposed to be a shooter. He was to serve as an aide to Nicoletti with weapons and to help survey the area. Files went to Dallas a week before the assassination. A day after his arrival at the Lamplighter Hotel in Dallas, Lee Harvey Oswald arrived at the hotel. Oswald and Files shared the same controller, David Atlee Phillips, who was a CIA officer. Files claims that over the next 5 days, he and Oswald spent the time together, also claiming that Oswald took a photo of Files, which he was able to provide. Nicoletti arrived in Dallas 2 days before the assassination and informed Files that the CIA wanted to abort the assassination, but they were going to carry it through anyway. Files claims he chose the grassy knolls as a shooting location, wore a reversible jacket to look like a railway worker, and stored his weapon in a suitcase. He claims that when Kennedy had come right in front of him, he heard the shots. He saw that no one had hit Kennedy in the head. Files aimed at his right eye and firing the fatal shot. He said that he then packed the gun, bit the shell casing, left the casings on the fence, and walked away. He then walked to the arrangement place, which Files claims was a car garage, drove a car with Nicoletti and Roselli, dropped them off at a gas station, and drove himself to Chicago. He further claimed that Oswald did not fire at the president or Officer Tippit. However, he never said who killed Tippit. Nicoletti was the other shooter and was firing from the Daltex building. Jack Ruby was at the Dally Plaza the day of the shooting and claimed that Kennedy was hit in the head twice his shot and Nicolotti's headshot were a split second of each other's. James Files is currently serving a 30-year jail sentence for attempted murder on an officer. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of the mob and CIA theories comes from JFK's supposed ties to the Sam Giancana, the head of the Chicago syndicate at the time. JFK's father had worked with Sam in the bootlegging industry during the Prohibition. Sam was supposedly to testify about his role in the CIA assassination plot in 1975 when he himself was assassinated. The Russian conspiracy. Obviously, there was tension between the two nations with the Cold War. Oswald had tried to defect the Soviet Union before. Some theorized that Oswald could have been acting as a KGB agent, though it is worth mentioning that Oswald would not be a smart option for the Russians to use, since he would immediately cast suspicion on Russia due to his well-known ties with Russia. The CIA behind the assassination of JFK. Allen Dulles, the former head of the CIA, was on the Warren Commission, and the CIA withheld information from the Warren Commission. Some feel that JFK may have found out that the CIA had a plot to assassinate Fidel Castro. CIA felt Kennedy might have different agenda and even disband them, so they plotted to assassinate him. Another possible CIA motive was that after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion into Cuba, CIA went under personnel changes at the hand of Kennedy, which may have upset them. During the Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy refused to offer additional U.S. military support. The Cuban government conspiracy. Some intrigued scholars keep on asserting that Fidel Castro requested the death of Kennedy in reprisal for the CIA's past endeavors to kill him. These are just some of the theories that happened and who might have overseen the assassination. There are many more theories out there, but these are just some of the most popular theories. I think the best breakdown on who killed JFK is in the movie JFK. This movie shows all the different ways on who could have killed JFK and who had the power to cover it up. According to the movie JFK, Jim Garrison, District Attorney of New Orleans Parish, Louisiana, had a trial against Clay Shaw. Garrison believed that right-wing activist Gay Bannister, Shaw, and David Ferrie worked with the CIA to kill the president. Garrison claimed that the reason these men and the CIA wanted the president dead was because they were upset with Kennedy's plan to set up a peace treaty with both Cuba and Vietnam. It was also rumored that Kennedy wanted to dismantle the CIA for the Bay of Pigs incident in Cuba, giving a speech on April 21st, 1961, saying he wanted to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind. During the trial of Shaw, Garrison was able to make a strong point in his magic bullet theory. Garrison took note of how the Warren report claimed that one of the 3 bullets fired missed. The last bullet fired clearly hit Kennedy in the head, as seen in the famous Zapruder film, which Garrison showed for the first time to the public. I believe that the Warren report is incorrect in saying that Oswald acted alone in this shooting. I believe that Garrison was able to rule out the Warren report and his allegations. I find it very unlikely that Oswald would have been able to get off 3 shots, and that the Warren report states was 7.1 to 7.9 seconds. Even if he was able to reload the rifle that fast, it would take longer for him to take aim. Again, I also believe that Garrison's magic bullet theory also can disprove the Warren report's conclusion. Based on the allegations of James Files, I believe that it was the Mafia, the CIA, and anti-Castro right-wing activists that Garrison mentioned. Clay Shaw, and Guy Bannister and David Ferry were involved in the assassination. When Oswald was caught and he kept denying it and calling himself a patsy, the mafia got worried and Jack Ruby murdered him. Ruby was a perfect man to kill Oswald. He had a pulmonary embolism and died on January 3rd, 1967, so he already knew wouldn't spend the rest of his life in jail. He would die. This is on the biography of Jack Ruby. I also believe that this is why Ferry was killed. He knew what the mafia could do, and he knew if he said anything, he would be eliminated. I believe I believe he was murdered by the mafia. In conclusion, I strongly believe that James Files, Charles Nicoletti were asked by the CIA to assassinate the president. I believe that Shaw, Bannister, and Ferry's job was to provide the weapons and find someone to frame, and they chose Lee Harvey Oswald, who was a perfect man to frame. He was involved with the Soviet Union and Cuba, the United States' main enemies at the time. Oswald had also tried to murder General Edwin A. Walker, so it is easy to believe that he was capable of murdering the president, according to the Warren Commission. Files was standing behind the fence on the grassy knoll, and Nicolette was in the Dowtex building. When the Nicolette was not able to get off the shot, Files took the fatal headshot. They escaped and were successfully able to frame Oswald. Oswald was caught and repeatedly claimed he was framed, and the mafia had Jack Ruby kill Oswald. The CIA was able to cover up the true story of who killed Kennedy. The CIA would be forced to cover it up because even though the mafia carried out the assassination, the CIA formed the original plan. If they were to further investigate and prosecute the mafia members that committed the murder, that the origin of the attack would easily be traced back to the CIA. Bannister was already dead. When word got out through the press of Garrison's allegations, Ferry became worried. Ferry was killed by the mafia to silence him. When Garrison's trial against Shaw failed, the mafia, the CIA, and the anti-Castro right-wing activists successfully assassinated President JFK. So there you have it. I just gave you, the American people, plenty of facts of events that led up to the assassination and theories who was involved in the assassination of JFK. I also gave you my opinion on who I think is responsible for the assassination. It is up to you to do your own research and find the truth. Even if we never know who pulled the trigger, I think we could all agree that there was more than one shooter, and that would mean there was another person or persons that were involved. I think that it is not a coincidence that anyone that had any information about the assassination ended up dead. This must be one of the biggest lies that the government has been covering up in U.S. history. I could only wonder what else their government is hiding. Thank you.